Welcome to the Outdoorsy Educator podcast, the show where curiosity meets the open road. I'm your host Alasdair, and I invite you to join me as we explore the world through travel, adventure, nature, and the power of learning. Each episode we dive into inspiring stories from adventurers, educators, and global citizens. Whether it's in a classroom, on a local trail, or adventuring halfway across the world, there are stories to be told and lessons to share. So pack your curiosity, lace up your boots, and let's discover how the world can teach us all, one step, one story, one adventure at a time. Before we start this week's episode, I'd like to make a quick announcement. As you will hear in this episode, Muriel mentions that her father recently passed away. The Reverend Roddy Morrison served as a minister for 50 years, most notably at the Stornoway High Church from 1981 to 1994, and was widely respected for his clarity, conviction, and humility in preaching and pastoral care. Even after his retirement in 2008, he continued to serve congregations across the Hebrides, both in Gaelic and in English, leaving a lasting legacy cherished by his wife Chris-Anne, their children Muriel and Derek, 3 granddaughters, and many others who knew him. This episode is recorded and presented in his honour. Today we are joined by Muriel MacKenzie, a teacher, tour guide and storyteller from the Outer Hebrides. Muriel has spent most of her life on the rugged, windswept Isle of Lewis, where the land holds ancient secrets. With a deep passion for anthropology, she weaves together history, archaeology and lived experience to reveal the fascinating Norse connections that still shape the people and culture of the island today. Whether she's guiding visitors across the standing stones of Callanish or sharing tales passed down through generations, Muriel brings the past vividly into the present. She invites us to see the Hebrides not as a remote edge of the world, but as a vibrant crossroads in history. And on this week's episode, we have my dear friend Muriel MacKenzie. Muriel, how are you today?
I'm great, Al. How are you? It's nice to hear your voice again.
Wonderful. So, quick wee bit of backstory for listeners. Muriel and I met in secondary school, so that would be a lot longer ago than either of us would care to admit. We've stayed
Definitely.
in touch via social media, but this is the first conversation we've had, let's just say, in a couple of decades, and
Yes.
we'll leave it at that. But Muriel, why don't you tell us just a wee bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Muriel MacKenzie, and I am living in my home is the Isle of Lewis in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland. So it's on the northwest kind of fringe of the country, and we're quite remote, I think, compared to a lot of places around you, Al, definitely. But
Yes.
yeah, I'm a teacher in a local secondary school. I have twin girls who are 12 years old. I've been married to my husband Nori for 20 years, 21 years. I know, it's crazy. We got married when we were really young. We
Right.
got married when I was 22, which looking back is pretty incredible, getting married that young. But yeah, so that's my little life. I'm living here in the Hebrides and got a few passion projects on the go with different things that I like to do, but I'm a teacher by profession, yeah.
I love it. Well, tell us a wee bit about Lewis, because obviously most people of our listeners are either based in the UK or here in the US, and they know Scotland and they know Glasgow and Edinburgh, and they maybe go up to Inverness and that sort of thing. But Lewis being an island, yes, it's Scottish, but there's more to it than that. So I'd love to hear just how would you describe Lewis to somebody you met and said, what's that like?
Well, Lewis Lewis is definitely, we're part of a chain of islands called the Outer Hebrides, and then there's islands called the Inner Hebrides as well, and then you have mainland Scotland. So we're really like among the furthest out of the islands. And Lewis is the largest of the islands in the Outer Hebrides, and we've got a main town called Stornoway, and that's where I work, and I live just outside Stornoway. And both sides of my family tree, on my father's side and my mother's side, are as far back as you can possibly go in the Hebrides. I mean, I thought that I might find some sort of exotic, I don't know,
Right.
some interesting, because I got one of these ancestry DNA tests done because they were really sort of popular, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll have something really exciting or interesting. But yeah, the DNA composition was like 85% Scottish, not just Scottish, but Hebridean. So it's like specifically
Right.
specifically Hebridean. My family
Right.
tree is just lots of repetitions of the same names of a McDonald's and Morrison's. And then the rest was made up of a small part of Irish and then Norwegian and Icelandic. So I think when you ask me the question, how is Lewis different to the rest of Scotland, a little clue is there in the DNA, because we were not always Scottish. There was actually a period of our history for just a couple of 100 years where we were actually a part of the Kingdom of Norway. So Norway had the Northern Kingdom and the Southern Kingdom. The Northern Kingdom was Orkney and Shetland, and the Southern Kingdom, the Sudira, was the Hebrides. So we have a definite Norse influence here, and we have, I would say, quite a unique culture, and we're quite different from the rest of Scotland. A huge part of this is also our Gaelic culture. So Gaelic is, we're living in the heartland of Gaeldom here. This is the stronghold. If you were to ask where the heart of Scottish Gaelic is, it's the Hebrides. So the language shapes our culture, it shapes our music, it shapes our art, our storytelling, just everything, even our humour. It's a huge part of our lives.
So that's something that's quite interesting. And again, most people who are listening to this will probably know, but where I'm from in Glasgow, where I met Muriel, and most of Scotland, Gaelic has died out. Gaelic is no longer spoken except for by a very few people. But that's, from what you're saying, not really the case in Lewis. I mean, is it almost like a bilingual culture? Or is
Yeah.
it?
I would say increasingly, I mean, there's been a huge drive to try and encourage people to learn Gaelic, and there's a lot of people who have like a small sort of percentage of Gaelic, like they'll be able to speak a little bit, or they have unlocked Gaelic, like they'll be able to understand Gaelic but not to speak it with confidence. So there's lots of people I know, like myself included, that can follow a Gaelic conversation, but if somebody was to ask you a question, they'd be maybe a little bit reluctant to speak it in case you make mistakes. So the big push has been to get rid of that nervousness around Gaelic. And, there's a saying that it's better to have broken Gaelic than to have dead Gaelic. It's better for Gaelic to have a little bit rather than the language to die out. So Gaelic medium education is very popular here. A lot of people, even if they're not Gaelic speakers themselves, they put their children into full Gaelic immersion in Gaelic primary. And the children, there are so many children learning Gaelic in primary school here that by the time they reach secondary school, they're kind of starting to struggle for enough teachers that can speak the language and teach it in all the different subjects. So yeah, I would say Gaelic is It's suffered through its history. I mean, even in my mother's generation, they were forbidden to speak Gaelic.
I was going to be my next question. Was there a period of time where
Yeah.
that was not allowed?
Yeah, like Highland culture and the Gaelic language was stamped on, really. It was you were forbidden. My mother would tell me about primary school experiences that she had, and if you were caught speaking in Gaelic, you would get the belt. Or if it was really sort of preferred that you would speak in English. And now my parents both were native fluent Gaelic speakers, and when they would hear English, they wouldn't always understand it when they were very young, and it was quite an intimidating environment for the Gaels.
It's tragic, and yet there's a degree of irony or something, I suppose. Like this happened in Canada, and then other places as well, where these native languages were stamped out. And
Yeah,
as you said, you face the belt or some sort of punishment.
yeah.
Um, which is just tragic. Just so I'm so glad that it seems to maybe people are showing an interest again
Yeah,
in
I
learning
know.
this.
In Glasgow, like the Glasgow Gaelic Secondary School is really sought after. It's a very respected school, and it's the same kind of thing. Like maybe people who are not, they don't have Gaelic speaking homes, but they're choosing to send their children to be educated there. So it shows that there is an interest, there's investment. A lot of people would argue not enough. We're kind of it's a journey, that we're on
Right,
as a nation, I think, with Gaelic. But where I live here, it's definitely it's a very important part of people's identity, the Gaelic
right.
aspect. Yeah.
I know maybe it's been 10 years or maybe longer than that. Like ScotRail put up the signs in Gaelic and English, on the train stations. And I remember reading some of the backlash, what a waste of money that is. Nobody
Yeah.
speaks Gaelic. But you're right, it's the identity. And
Yeah.
somebody who speaks Gaelic goes, I feel seen,
Mm-hmm.
it feels respected, and it normalizes to me seeing Gaelic, which I think is important. It's not some almost like a foreign language. It's who we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's really precious, and it's something that people feel very strongly about, and it's a massive part of identity. And to have a piece of your identity lost as a people, it's a really sad prospect. So I'm really supportive of Gaelic. I do a weekly Gaelic lesson myself as part of my professional development. As a teacher, I am taking on more classes where I'm actually teaching in Gaelic, like portions of the lesson. So the school are supporting me in my learning, to try and encourage me to develop my Gaelic as well. So, even on a personal level with identity, my mother and father are fluent. Like, they would not speak to each other in English in the home. It was like I was surrounded by Gaelic. So, it's something I don't want it to stop with me. I don't
Right,
want my generation to be the one that's the break in the chain, and
right,
I'm trying to encourage my girls as well to use the language.
right. I was going to ask you. So, are you now teaching your twin girls? Are they learning in school a bit?
Yeah, every
Yeah.
child here learns Gaelic in school, and
Right.
you have it as part of the curriculum up until I think third year. It then becomes something that you have, control over, whether you take it further and you study, or if you kind of park it up and you don't take it any further. But yeah, I would always encourage my daughters, and they do get like Gaelic input from like my mother. My father recently passed; he's no longer with us, but my mother is constantly speaking to us in Gaelic, and she encourages the girls. And if I'm out with my mom and my daughters, my mom will say to me, "Right, no English." we have to just speak in Gaelic in the car. And with my, she'll always encourage me, and I just feel like it's when that generation goes, these absolute fluent, like brilliant, like old school, Gaels go. There's lots of people my age that can speak Gaelic brilliantly,
Right.
but for the people like myself, I wanna fight to try my best. I have got a reasonable amount of Gaelic, but I want to keep improving.
I love it. And I think I kind of feel that maybe as the world has shrunk in a lot of ways, we're all connected. We have the ability to do this, which we didn't have, the previous generation. I think it is sort of going full circle. There's a lady here that I live in the Dallas area who teaches Gaelic.
Wow,
I'm not quite sure of her story. I've never met her, but she's here, and
that's
she works with.
amazing.
It is. I mean, who'd have thought in Dallas, Texas, would be a native? She's fully fluent. She works
Wow,
alongside a Scottish country dancing group, and people want to get back to their roots. I think there's
I think
a
so.
growing appreciation, and I was actually reading the other day about Welsh being taught in Argentina, and I thought that I had no idea why. I thought, what's that about? It turns out a lot of, I think it was miners and people went from Wales down to Patagonia 100 odd years ago, and so Welsh was dying out with people's grandparents, and there's been a resurgence in people in Argentina. A small group of people, but a group nonetheless wanting to learn Welsh.
That's
Um,
amazing. There's actually a
yeah,
lot of people from this island went to Patagonia as
really.
well. Yeah, there's a connection from here as well. Yeah. So I think is Argentina not the country that has the most amount of Scots living in it that's not an English speaking country?
I think
There's
so.
some statistic because whenever Scotland play, you always see the Argentina strips coming out.
Right.
You know,
I
people,
think
yeah, there's a
there's
connection.
there's a connection there, and my brain immediately makes a connection to sports. There's a lot of Scottish influence on the sporting teams
Yeah.
in Argentina.
We
Because
love
these, yeah,
Argentina, yeah.
yeah, something about it. Yeah, because a lot of these like football teams started off as like social clubs for expats and things like
Yeah,
that.
there's definitely like if you see some of the Argentinian players as well, like they've got like very Scottish sounding surnames and stuff, and
I'm
they
sure there's a
look quite
McAllister.
Scottish. Aye, like
Yeah, yeah,
he could be from here. Like if you see
right.
him Ali McAllister, he's yeah, so there's a lot of love for Argentina, and I think it's because of that cultural connection, the historical link, between, it's just migration and people moving around and yeah,
Yeah, new opportunities. I'm not
yeah.
sure if you stayed in touch with them, but our mutual friend Danuka from school.
Oh, I haven't.
Um,
How's he doing?
he's great. I mean, very successful. He lives down in England now, but he goes back and forth to Argentina quite a bit. He
Wow.
loves it. Just the culture, just everything about it. He
It
can't get
looks
enough.
great. That's great.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear he's doing well as well.
yeah, yeah. He's a doctor in Oxford, I
That does
believe.
not surprise me. Danica
Right.
was so clever in school.
Yeah, brilliant, a brilliant guy, and he and I stayed in good touch, and
Good.
we both have an open invitation to each other's houses, which is quite nice.
That's lovely.
But it's funny, we sort of touched on sports a wee bit, and one of the notes I wanted to ask you about, and I may have the name wrong, so please correct me, but there's like an island games, it looks like. And tell me what that's about. I'd love to hear about it.
Okay, so this is the World Island Games I think you're talking about.
Yes,
And
yes,
what it is, it's almost like an Olympic Games, but it's for all of the island communities in the world.
right.
So because of our size, obviously a lot of places in the world they don't have access to the same sort of resources. So, they don't have the same opportunities. to compete. And what the World Island Games is, as far as I know, I mean, I follow it like I'm a fan of it. I'm not involved in it in any way, but
Right.
as somebody who supports the Western Isles team, it's just like a range of different sports. So you've got your track and field events, you've got things like archery, you've got golf, you've got like all sorts of different sports. And it's just the different island athletes from around the world competing. And they were this year in Orkney. Orkney was the host,
Right.
and our team did amazingly. We had quite a few gold medals. We got some athletes here who are really amazing. So we're cheering them on. The community definitely
Right.
gets behind them and sharing all of their social media stories. And I think the next one's in the Faroe Islands, so that would be really fantastic to go to. Um,
Yes.
I think last one before, I think there was one in Gotland and Sweden. So I think it's a really nice atmosphere among the athletes. Like they're very friendly. They all just like there's a lot of friendships made, and it's a great opportunity for island athletes to get out there and compete on a bigger stage.
I wonder if, yeah, that's partly, island life is a bit different than life on a mainland or in a city. So
Yeah.
there's a kinship and understanding of where each other comes from.
Yeah, islanders are definitely like there's something a bit different about you if you're an islander,
Right.
and island life is, I would just say from my own experience, having been brought up in the islands and being an islander, and then I moved down. That's when I met you,
Right.
for a portion of my life because my father's job meant we had to. I moved into this frantic pace, this electric atmosphere, this city that was just pulsing with activity. And it was like, wow, this is a different world because island life is much more laid back. And it's like island time, the urgency is not quite there. It's just a different lifestyle basically. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think it is something that a lot of us crave and want more of, those of us that still live in the city. There's lots of pros to being in the city and everything's on our doorstep and all
Yeah.
of that. But I think a lot of us really do crave that sort of slowing down of life.
Yeah.
But you sort of mentioned that you'd moved to Glasgow. I know you've travelled a wee bit. I'd love to hear about, a travel experience somewhere that you've been that's really had an impact on you, or perhaps your favourite place, or just somewhere that really changed your perspective on the world.
Well, I've kind of got two.
Lovely.
So my first one was as a teenager, and it was actually through your father.
I thought that, yes, yes.
um, so your dad was organising a Commonwealth Youth Exchange between Glasgow and Bangladesh. And they were looking for young folk to see if there was any interest. And you mentioned this casually one day in
Right.
school, and about five of us bit your hand off, and we got involved, and we actually did two trips out to Bangladesh. One was in 1998, and the other was in 2000. So, as a 15-year-old girl, going to Bangladesh was just like it's really hard to describe. It was a mind-blowing experience for me because I was
Right.
obviously raised here in the Outer Hebrides, moved down to Glasgow and thought that was busy. And then
Right.
and then I went to Bangladesh, and I always remember the culture shock. Like when I got to Dhaka, I just had never seen so many people. And
Right.
it's a country that has like overcrowding and overpopulation issues, a lot of poverty. I'd never really seen these types of things before. I had never seen how hard life can be for some people.
Right.
I, spent quite a lot of time on these trips talking to children and was amazed at the command of the English language some of the kids that were even homeless on the streets had. I was like, these are smart kids, they're bright kids, but a lot of them were not attending school because they didn't have the means.
Right.
And I learned a lot about just how fortunate I am, to be, have the life that I have. And it opened my eyes up to see what life is like for other people in different parts of the world who have very different, circumstances. And, we spent time going round Bangladesh or going round with different charities, and we were looking at different projects. And we actually, the second time we went back, we started to build a hostel for girls, because on the first trip we realized that there was a need for this for girls' education.
Right.
The girls had a requirement that they had to stay on the campus, but they didn't have accommodation. So we came back, we raised money, and we went out, and we had pans of concrete on our heads helping build. And I think that was a real shock for people in this rural. It was actually up in the north of Bangladesh, in a village called Kakina. And some of these children had never seen, European people, white people before, and they were like, "Wow." It was an amazing experience for us to spend time with them, and I think they enjoyed the time that we spent as well. I remember one of the guys in our group showing the local children a Game Boy, and they were just like,
Right.
"Whoa!" They loved
What
it.
is this?
Yeah, so it was we had a wonderful time. It was unforgettable, and it definitely shaped me and my views of the world and my position within it. And I don't think I ever had a job interview or an application form where I didn't mention that trip.
I
Like,
mean, you'd have to have a heart of stone, I think, to go somewhere like that and then not have a profound impact.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And just pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. Like, I remember being on a stage and there was at least 2,000 people in front of me, and like having to speak,
Right.
and we were even like singing a song, a Scottish song. And these kind of experiences are uncomfortable. Like, I don't think anybody enjoys like maybe putting themselves out there initially, but you don't grow inside your comfort zone. You've got to push out of it to grow. And I feel like that experience, just working with these charities, meeting all these people, having my eyes opened to what the world is like in different countries, it really made me grow as a person.
Right. That's just wonderful. I'm so glad that trip happened for you.
Well, I'm
Um,
very glad that you told me your dad was looking for people to go on that trip. But that one
yes.
was definitely that was at a very young age that that trip took
Right.
place. And I think the other place that's really affected, well, it just had a big impact on me, was recently going to Iceland. And we went to
Right.
Iceland in 2022, and it was an amazing experience because I just felt so at home there, and I
Right.
felt such a connection there. And it really made me kind of look inwards more and think about, well, what is the history of our people in the Hebrides? Where are we from? What's our story? And I really started to look at what it means to be a Hebridean. And I was going to like the settlement museum in Reykjavik and seeing displays about the Outer Hebrides there, and about the Hebridean ancestors who came to Iceland and settled. And and I just felt there was a kinship with the Icelandic people. And when I would speak to them, when they discovered that we came from the Hebrides, they were so interested, and they were like, "We've learned about the Hebrides, we've heard about the Hebrides," because Iceland was settled by, a mix of Norse and Celtic people.
Right.
And a lot of the people who settled in Iceland, who were like the first big populations there, were people who came from Scotland, and especially the Scottish Islands. So I feel like the first trip, like the Bangladesh trip, was all about, well, what's out there, what are other people like? But I feel like the trip to Iceland prompted me to think, where's my place in all of this? And what's my story? And who are my people? And what have we been through? And where have we traveled? And it was kind of, it got me really interested in like my own culture.
That's fascinating. I would never have thought of that. Like, yeah, to look externally on one trip and then internally on another.
Yeah, I mean, I've
That's
done
yeah,
lots of other trips in between, but I've gone to different countries, but these are the two that really stick out in my mind because they really like prompted me to think deeply.
yeah. It's a really interesting point because I think of some of the trips and things I've taken, and some of them, yeah, a bit like Bangladesh, but different. You know, you're going to see things, whether
Mm-hmm.
that's how people live or monuments or famous things, or just seeing a different culture. But then I also like to go camping and hiking a lot in different
Yeah,
places, and that's actually more of an internal experience.
yeah,
And it's quite nice to have that
definitely.
balance. I've never really thought about it that way. It's a really
Yeah,
good way to put it.
yeah. Some
Um,
trips take you out with, and some trips make you look within. I think they do. It depends
yeah.
what kind of trip you're on and what you're doing and where you're going. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Now, one trip, well, I think you qualify this as a trip that I saw on your Instagram and fascinates me because it's a world I know nothing about. Was this sailing expedition that you did? I I've been on boats a couple of times. You know, I just know nothing about it. And could you tell us just a wee bit about this sailing expedition down? I think it was down the west coast of Scotland.
Yeah, so there's a charity called the Ocean Youth Trust, and they are a charity based in Scotland, and they have two sailing vessels, Alba Adventurer 1 and 2. And it's an amazing charity. And what they do is they give children, young people who maybe need a little bit more opportunity. Maybe, everyone's got their own story. Maybe they might be disadvantaged, or they might be going through something, or they might be losing focus in school, or whatever their reason, they need something to engage them. And the Ocean Youth Trust, OIT, run these kind of expeditions, especially for young people. So it was offered to our local authority, the Cornelian Shear, so that's Gaelic for the Western Isles Council, and we got a group together of young people who we thought would benefit from this, and I was one of the leaders on the trip. So they were looking in school for somebody who would enjoy an outdoors experience and wanted to engage, with these kind of kids. So I love sailing. Like I was
Right,
raised on boats. Like my father had a boat. We were always on boats. It was I don't know, it's just life here is, a lot of people enjoy going out sailing here. So a lot of the other teachers were kind of like, oh, I don't know, I might get seasick. I don't know, it's a bit claustrophobic. And I can understand why,
right.
people might have reservations. But I thought, seize the day, let's go for it. So we took these kids away, and it was absolutely amazing. It's one of the best things I've ever done in my working life. So we sailed round the west coast of Scotland, a portion of the west coast of
Right.
Scotland, and from Greenock and up. And we went past Mull, and it was Arran, sorry, and it was just absolutely amazing for these kids to get the opportunity, because you have a lot of responsibility if you're on a boat. There's no mucking about. There's no, like, if you don't do something, you're letting your whole team down.
Right.
So it really taught them that they had to work together, and they had to, it wasn't always easy. there was a lot of seasickness tablets handed out.
Right.
There was sometimes people, find it overwhelming. Sometimes people were missing their mums and dads, and they were sometimes maybe what was on the menu wasn't exactly what they wanted, but it taught them that you have to see things through. And
I love it.
you're on a yacht. You're right. It was actually a force 8. 2 of the days that we were out there, it was wild.
Goodness.
And it was like, right, we're out here, we're in this situation. We need to use the skills that we've learned in order to survive out here. And we need to get along. We need to be good to each other. We need to treat each other with
Right.
respect. And I think all of these things are things that, are really important for young people to learn.
I
So
love
it
it.
was it
Yeah.
was a huge learning experience. Not everything you learn as a young person happens in the classroom. There's a lot that happens in life, and this was a great opportunity for these kids to learn like compassion, respect, patience, resilience, just to see things through. And they were also taught skills like obviously nautical skills, and they all got a certificate at the end of it, which is great for
Right.
them going on, and applying
Right.
for courses and things. So it was a 10 out of 10 experience, definitely.
I love it. It's so funny how that's a world away, but the experience is so similar. I've mentioned this to other guests. I live in a very urban area, and when I was in the classroom, we would take our kids once a year to a science camp. We huts and cabins out by a lake, in the middle of nowhere, and it was
Hmm.
if you could just see this almost like armor dropping off them because they had to be sort of on every day, all day. Many of them lived in poverty. They lived in, housing that wasn't ideal. All these kinds of,
Yeah,
and you got to see them be kids and just enjoy each other. And they had responsibilities at this camp. You were in charge of cleaning, tidying up. There's a huge deal made about not wasting food
yeah,
because a lot of these kids are food insecure, so they would go and grab huge amounts of foods. They couldn't eat it; it would get thrown away. So
yeah,
there was a lot of talk about that, and you just saw them spring to life when they
yeah,
were taken out of the situation that they'd become accustomed to being so defensive and uptight in. So it just
yeah.
sounds like a very similar thing.
Yeah, you see the guard dropping, and you see, kids that sometimes, because they got different things going on in their lives, sometimes they might have a bit of bravado about them and a bit, kind of a tough image, and then you just see that chip away, and you just see at the end of the day, they're all kids, they're all young folk,
Exactly.
and they all want to be treated with care and to, be taught, treated well. And I just really I enjoyed being one of the lead adults in that situation. I thought it was a real privilege to have that kind of experience, and I would do it again. I mean, it's not the kind of opportunity that always comes up. This isn't something we always get the chance to do here. But if there's anybody listening to your podcast who has the chance to do something like that, I would say it's an extremely rewarding experience to work with young people, and maybe in a challenging environment, but you can, I don't know, I think some of your best qualities can develop from hard situations. Like
Absolutely.
you only become brave if you're scared, and you don't run away from it, or you only become patient when you don't crack, and so you get these really beautiful qualities as a human, but you get them through sometimes suffering and
Right.
through really hard times. But they're some of the best qualities that you get. So even though experiences like that might not be easy, I think they're really valuable.
I couldn't agree more. And then the hope is that these children in 10, 20, 30 years will remember how they felt and then they're going to pass it on.
I hope so.
I hope so
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
It kind of reminds me a little bit. I spoke to a wonderful lady called Liz Coltenhauser, One of the first episodes I did, and it's different, but it just reminds me. She lives in Minnesota, which is very landlocked. I mean, there's lakes, but they're, I mean, literally 1,000 miles from the ocean. And
Wow.
she is working, but she works in an aquarium. She lived in Florida, which is, you know, surrounded by water, and has a degree in, I've forgotten now, some kind of fancy biology,
Marine
and
biology, yeah.
marine biology probably. And she is working with sort of scuba divers in Florida to develop
Wow.
technology that allows the scuba diver to wear cameras and things inside their gear. So these school
Wow.
children in Minnesota who have never been to the ocean can talk to the diver and like, oh,
That's
can you show me what
really
this
cool.
is? Can you show me what that is? What's the And I guess the technology exists, but it's incredibly expensive to have two-way communication with somebody in a scuba suit.
Oh my
So
goodness.
she is working on how can we make this affordable and accessible to the school trips at her aquarium where she works.
Sounds like an
Um,
amazing lady and an amazing project.
Indeed, I might have to put her in touch with this Ocean Youth Trust because it's all about bringing kids to the water
Yeah.
and all the great things that come from that. So I think
Yeah.
that's absolutely wonderful. But speaking of your teaching, like you teach in a secondary school, that's right, is it?
Yep.
How do these experiences and things really affect what you do in the classroom, would you say?
Um, well, I think that when you're teaching a subject, it can be. I mean, I remember when I started teaching, somebody said to me, teaching is 2/3 theatre, 1/3 knowledge. Because it's the way that you put across information, is the way that you present it. It's you've got to make things come alive for children. Like we could all stand in front of kids and read pages out of textbooks and they just would be bored and they switch off. So I think if you can bring life into the classroom, if you can connect what you're teaching with stories and experiences, then it makes what you're saying more genuine for them and it makes it more enjoyable for them. So the subject that I teach is RMPS. So it's a mix of different subjects. So it's religious, moral, and philosophical studies. Um,
Right,
so we do sort of we'll look at different beliefs from around the world. We'll look at a range of different sort of religions and faiths. We look at ethics. We look at the morality of different issues that are happening in the world. We might study poverty, war. We look at crime, we look at all sorts of things, and we also look at philosophy. We do a range of different philosophical courses. So I think we talk about life a lot, basically, in the subject that I
right.
teach. So maybe you wouldn't do that quite so much if you taught different subjects, like if you taught maths or if you taught, you know, science. You might not be able to connect it quite the same way, but I just feel that when I am, for example, teaching about poverty or about inequality or about crime or about any sort of philosophical or faith perspective, if I can say, I was once here, I was once there, I once did this, I once did that, this is my experience, this is my impression that I got, it really helps them to kind of visualize things and it helps them to, I think, understand what I'm saying better.
Right.
Like if I can describe to them what it's like firsthand to work with a charity or
Right.
to encounter, like poverty and deprivation, or you know eh, eh, they can ask me questions that you can't ask a textbook. So I think teachers' life
Right.
experiences and um all different types of teachers will have all different types of life experiences. And I actually think no matter what subject you teach, really, I think if you can connect with the young people on a personal level, you'll have more success. as a teacher. So I
Yes.
feel that it doesn't matter where we are in the world. I'm sure it's exactly the
Right.
same with you, Al, over in the
Right.
USA. Um, we're human, we're human beings. We're all living a life. We're all trying our best, and if we can share with each other experiences and encouragement and stories, then I just think it makes school a more pleasant place.
I couldn't agree more. I'm currently writing my dissertation for my PhD, and it's all about that.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
relationships, taking care of each other, both children and staff, and how does this benefit the school society as a whole?
That's going to be
So
a good
I
PhD.
love it. I hope
That's
so.
going to be
Fingers
a good
crossed.
one.
Fingers crossed. Well, let's see. I've got kind of three questions to ask you as we kind of round the corner here and come round to the end of this fantastic interview.
Thank you.
Um, if we need to pause, we can pause, but I'm just going to throw three questions at you. The
Okay.
first one is if you could live or visit another time period, when would that be and why? What is it you would like to see?
I think if I could visit another time period, I would love to go back in time on this island to see sort of we have standing stones on this island called the Calner stones,
Mm-hmm.
and they are around 5,000 years old, right? And we have them, and we look at them, and they're beautiful. They're absolutely stunning, and it's not just one set. We have around 11 stone circles and about
Right.
another 9 singular standing stones on the island. So they are they have stood the test of time. They're standing there. They have literally seen millions of sunrises and sunsets. They are magnificent, but we don't completely understand them.
Right.
So we can see they seem to be an astronomical observatory. They're lining up with a shape of a woman in the hills, and they call it the Cailleach na Mointeach, the Earth Mother, and they believe that it was something to do with the moon and the moon moving across her pregnant body, and it was birth and life. And all these stones are in very specific sort of arrangements. And we know that they were important places for worship, but we don't know anymore. Like, there's so many unanswered questions. And what I would really like to do is go in a time machine back then and watch what was happening at these standing stones.
Right.
Like, what religion was like, what were their beliefs about, how were they organizing themselves, how were they behaving, who was important, who, because I mean, they believe that people came from afar to the now the Outer Hebrides are not easy to get to even
Right.
in 2025. So we're talking thousands of years ago, people were coming from far, far distances to come to this island to go to these stones. So they were famous back in these days, and I would just love to 5,000 years pop back and just have a little peek at what was actually going on at these standing stones.
Just sit there with a cup of tea and sort of what's going on here then.
Yeah, just
And
just be really nosy and just have a good look at what they're doing, because they're
right.
so, I mean, like with the whole Outlander thing and people touching the stones and them being portals and that whole thing that developed, it generated such an interest in standing stones, and
Right.
we get a lot of tourists who are really excited to see them. But I just think, well, why are they here? Like, I would love to have seen the ceremonies and the rituals that were taking place. Obviously, like, my degree was anthropology. That's
Right.
what I studied in Glasgow, and so really that's my kind of bread and butter. It's human behavior. Like, why are people doing this? Like,
Right.
how are they organizing themselves? What do they believe? What do they think? So that stuff fascinates me.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I'm going to, like, do they know if because like Stonehenge, those
Yeah.
stones moved, what was it, 200 or 300 miles, they think. Like,
Yeah,
didn't the
like
stones come from Wales? I think,
Orkney, I think.
or is it
Was there
Orkney?
not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
They don't know
think
how they moved them.
they even the theory of how they moved them, it's just like
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
It's incredible.
It's the kind of I'm now intrigued by these
Yeah.
stepping stones. I have to look them up when we're finished.
Yeah.
Let's see. Question 2: what is a skill you would love to possess but you do not?
Skill I would love to possess.
Yes.
I would love to be able to. Is this just like on a superficial level? This isn't too
Oh,
deep, is
very
it?
much so. This is not. I'd love to be able to draw. I'm not very good at drawings. Yeah, and I'm very envious. And
Um,
yeah,
I feel like quite a lot of our chat's been quite deep, so I'm just going to go for
right.
something quite silly. I'd
Perfect.
love to be able to fight with a sword.
That sounds amazing.
Because I've got a good friend who works on, different film and TV projects, and he's done some big stuff with like Braveheart and Outlander. And he comes up here on holiday and he gave me a lesson with swords, and we spent about a week, and he was training me on how to fight with a sword.
Right.
And then, obviously I forgot it all instantly. Memory like a goldfish. Like, you do have to drill it and you have to keep practicing. Like, it's an art form. But like the opportunities that are open to him because he can do this. There's so many exciting projects, and it's just such a cool thing to do. And I think it looks amazing and it feels great when you're doing it. And I had a little taster of it, and like I said, I can't really remember what I was doing that well. I think I'd need to practice and practice. So I would really like if I could do that. I'd like to be good at that. And I'm not good at that, but I would like to be.
I love the fact that I could do 200 interviews and virtually guarantee nobody else would give that answer, which
Fight with
I
a
think is
sword.
perfect.
The most
But
Hebridean answer ever.
I love it. Well, my final question of these three is: what book, movie, music, or piece of art has had a huge impact on your life, and in what way? And again, this could be deep and meaningful, or it could just be something that, a piece of music that takes you to a good place.
um, I think my interest in anthropology, like I was kind of like the arty kid in school. I don't know if you remember that, but I was
Very much
always
so.
painting, drawing. I always wanted to go to art school. I always, that was kind of my vibe. And I remember watching a movie when I was about I think I must have been about 14 or 15, and it was called Dances with Wolves.
Hmm.
I don't know if you know it.
I
And it
do.
was a film about Kevin Costner, and it was about Indigenous native, the native Indian population, and the struggles that they were having. Obviously with the whole history and their kind of identity and getting killed, and a kind of love story kind of woven through it. But I think that movie, like I kept watching it, and it really, as a girl living in the Outer Hebrides, it was so far away from what I had seen or what I had, and I just remember thinking, wow, I'm really into culture. I really am fascinated by culture. I want to study how people live. I want to learn about these types of people. So when I did eventually get to the age of applying for courses, I applied for anthropology and not art school. And I think the Bangladesh trip was a factor in this as well. I just became interested in cultural studies, and I just remember feeling like that movie really got me interested in it. And then, from there, I've kind of come full circle because I did my degree, I was a teacher, but then now I'm like a Western Isles Tourist Guide Association tour guide. And I
Right.
now guide people around my own culture, and I'm really like probably getting more and more interested in my own culture here more than any other culture. I remember being in university and I finished my senior honours, and my professor said to me, "Well, are you going to take your studies further?" And I was like, I don't think so. I think I need to go out and start working." And he said, "You come from the most fascinating place you could ever be from." He said the Outer Hebrides, the things that you could, do for a PhD, you could really find it interesting. All the different populations. That was a real highway. The sea was just that there was so many people coming in. There was so much sort of cultural fusion, and with the Norse influence. And he was encouraging me, and I kind of left it at that point. But I feel like I've come back to it now,
Right.
and I mean, I'm not going to do a PhD, but I really enjoy doing research now. Like, I'll write the odd wee article that I'll get put into a local magazine or paper. I help manage some history groups online. I really enjoy doing the guiding and showing people our own, my own culture here. And I feel like that movie started me becoming interested in culture. And now, I don't know, I just feel like you don't have to travel to the ends of the earth to be happy or to be fascinated by something. You can be happy in your own home. You can be happy with your own identity. You can be fascinated by it. And I think that I'm just proud of being a Hebridean person, and I love living here, and I find I'm getting more drawn to the sort of investigating our own history here and sort of sharing it with others.
I love it, and I can relate so much to what you were just saying, because like a lot of the traveling I do now is within the United States,
Yeah,
and because it's so vast,
yeah,
and politically it's one big country, but
yeah,
even from state to state, even regions within the state, I mean, they're so different when you sit down
yeah,
and talk to people. Um,
yeah,
it's like Europe, and so geographically, so you have people who are
yeah,
accustomed to living in the cold all year, or the heat all year, or
of
in the mountains,
course.
or in the
Yeah.
desert, and so I've made it a mission. This week I'm going to, I think it's my 45th state, and because I'm trying to hit them all, because there's
That's
so much to
amazing.
see here.
I bet.
Um, yeah, and so you're right. It's like you don't have to necessarily go to the ends of the earth. You can
No.
look out your own window and see
Yeah.
there's amazing culture and things right here wherever you may be.
I know. I think when you're
Yeah.
younger, there is like a part of being young that is all about the adventure, and I get that. And I think
Right.
it's a great thing for young people to go out and travel. And but I think that you can also have a lot of happiness in your own culture, and also like just kind of looking inward with that. And I don't know, there's just saying, like, here it's called Kealas, so it's a Gaelic word and it's really hard to translate it into English. But what it means is a kind of the Gaelic is a very descriptive language, and you
Right.
can't always neatly translate things. But keenness is a longing. It's like it's more than a homesickness. It's like an ache in your
Right.
physicality for the place that you belong to. So it's like it's the lochs, it's the hills, it's the ocean, it's the people, it's the smells, it's everything. It's like an invisible magnet pulling you back. And this is what a lot of people who are from the Hebrides feel about this island, that these islands, is that they have a pull on you, and you'll
Right.
go away and you'll travel the world and you'll have your adventures and you'll do, but the keenness will always pull you home. It will
Right.
always pull you home. And even like I have literally, no joke, seen grown men crying, talking about the ache to be home. Like they just,
Right.
and it's like when you get home, It's just like the jigsaw fitting back in. And we don't all get to stay here. That's not the way life works. It's not always that easy. People have to get work. They have to travel. Their life goes in all sorts of different directions. But I think for Islanders and Hebridean people, there is this pull home to these islands. And it's really hard to describe, but it's just something in your DNA. It's like these islands will pull you back. They will pull you back time and time again. And I just feel kind of lucky that I'm here. And,
Right.
you know, I appreciate being here and what I have. So yeah.
I love it. What a beautiful note to end on. We brought up Gaelic one more time, and I'm going to put you on the spot with asking
Oh
you for a Gaelic
no, please
send off.
don't.
Nobody will know
You
if
do
if
it. You
it's
do it. I taught you. Remember, you were going to do a
you
speech, and
did, you did.
I told you.
Unfortunately,
So I think you should say goodbye to me in Gaelic.
well, all right. Well, you know what? Let me. That piece of paper is not with me. Let's see. Goodbye in Gaelic. I'm going to see what the.
I can't wait. This is going to be great.
Yeah, I mean, it almost looks like. Well, it's the same as good, like sláinte, right? So slan. It's.
You
Who
can
knows?
say cheery and drasta. Bye for now.
Cheery and Drachta. There we
Drasta.
Drachta. Close enough. Well,
A for
Muriel,
effort.
A for effort. That'll do it. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I hope I've not bored you.
Not in the slightest. Thank you again to this week's guest, and I hope today's episode was as enjoyable for you as it was for me, and perhaps even inspired your next adventure. If you did enjoy the show, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or follow us wherever you get your podcasts. You can find more information at theoutdoorseyeducator.com or follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook. Until next time, thank you so much for listening to the Outdoorsy Educator Podcast.